Welcome to season 2 of the Evolv podcast.
In this new season, you're going to see upgraded equipment and guests that are going to be joining us on themes of business, self-development, health and fitness coaching, and our journey from start to finish.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Peace.
So we're back.
Oh, but we already introed it.
We already did. We've upgraded heaps. It's actually been a really...
It's been a bit of a roller coaster. You know what I mean? Pretty up and down. We haven't recorded a podcast
in so long.
And well, last week was the first. I'm still getting used to this.
Yeah, so am I.
Hearing my voice, hearing your voice. But just last week was the first time we actually tested out this equipment, tried doing podcasts since March this year, you know?
It's been a bit of a whirlwind. We decided to go balls to the walls and invest in some equipment. And we hope that with some equipment, it will only elevate us to the point where we actually enjoy doing this more often and record more. And well, now, as you can see, we don't have the wall behind us. We have a podcast room. We're renting
soft as well.
We're renting one just for a couple podcasts and just to see how it goes. And who knows where this will take us. But it's been a whirlwind since our last podcast. We went, as I said, balls to the walls, and now we've done the 20 hours, or 19 videos, but we've done the 20 hours worth of work at least. And now we're at this point where we've invested in all this equipment. We've learned so much in such a short amount of time since we actually started this podcast. And now we're at the point where we're recording on this equipment. And
it's pretty cool, to be fair.
It's been crazy.
It was November last year that we first decided to come together and start a podcast, which was almost a year in. No.
It was just under a year.
Was it before or after we started Dynamic Recall?
It was about 10 months in. 10 months in, we were like, we should do a podcast.
It was, wasn't it?
Because we started around October, November.
That's
so it was
right.
about 9 months in.
Almost a year of starting Dynamic Recall. We decided, let's start a podcast.
Yeah.
And initially, we were like keeping the podcast separate. Now you can see that we're wearing hats and shirts that have Dynamic Greek cover on it. So we're kind of promoting our own business.
Yeah.
It's only the two of us that are running the business and only the two of us are running the podcast. So essentially, we're kind of running them at the same time for the same reason and the same purpose.
It's crazy because now we are running both at the same time. It's definitely something that I didn't think I'd be doing anytime soon.
I didn't think I'd be running two operations at the same time. But the thing is, with the podcast, we initially started the podcast as a little fun on Friday night. Yeah, we just wanted to record something for fun and just put our heads behind the camera and just talk a lot of shit. Yeah. And we were like, you know what? We're recording behind the camera. We have our microphones attached. We can use this for content for Dynamic Recall. We can use this for content for other purposes, whatever. Because a lot of people were doing podcast style videos all over social media. We were like, that could actually help with Dynamic Recall, whatever it was. Then I had the idea, you know what? If we want to actually make this a podcast, let's do 20 hours worth of it first. Don't know why I came up with a random number of 20.
There was actually a post or something like doing 20 hours of work or putting 20 hours of work aside to something that you actually want to do or achieve or work towards benefits you, or you learn something new in just those 20 hours of work. You know whether to go ahead with it or steer clear. And it's honestly, as tough as it's been, learning all this new equipment and learning all these new processes and having the reins of both these businesses now, it's made us learn so much quicker. And I think that's the main thing that we should be taking away from this, is that in these 20 hours worth of work that we've put aside for something that, you know, may not profit us anything money-wise, it's made us learn a lesson. And that lesson that it's made us learn is put some time aside for something that you really want to achieve and you can do it.
100%. And we wouldn't be sitting here with microphones like this if we didn't actually put our time and energy into those 20 hours.
Yeah.
And while the podcast is not something that's profitable, and I feel like everyone kind of knows that podcasts aren't really profitable as a business venture.
From the beginning.
From the beginning anyway, but the way we're looking at it is that we've built this skill. We built this skill enough that we actually wanted to invest into it, invest into developing this skill, developing this craft. And I feel like it's anyone in any type of venture or any type of skill acquisition craft that they're doing, say it's football, they want to get the best boots of the best, you know? So they go find the best boots, and then that will help them. Yeah, they're investing into it. Sometimes there's financial investments, sometimes there's emotional investments, time investments. People make time investments into things all the time. We made the 20-hour investment as our first initial to even post our first one.
It was a time investment.
Yeah, that was a time investment. Now we've made the financial investment because we made the 20 hours. Now I want to elevate this podcast because we actually want to show that we actually care about it. We care about it that much that we decided, you know what, let's get roads.
I think that's another big thing. And as you can notice, like as I walk past the microphone, it's a lot more direct. So we're speaking into the microphone. But I think one of the biggest things is, so the reason I say that is because if I sound like I'm going out, that's the reason. Anyway, I feel like one of the biggest things that that was a good analogy, the soccer boots. If you're going to play soccer and you want to be the best of the best, you'll invest in the best of the best.
Best coaches.
But that comes down to brand. Brands are another big thing. We'll talk also about what we're going to be talking about in these podcasts. So in these podcasts, we dabbled in the previous ones. We were dabbling into a lot of the mental health side of things, not mental health, but like self-development, starting your own business. And as it progressed from the first podcast, I'm watching ourselves week after week after.
They can watch it if they want. So season 1 is honestly legit raw filming from day 1 to day 20 of our podcast. We actually lost 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So we actually made 24, but I lost 4 just in the transition from the phone to my laptop, and then my laptop to Spotify for podcasters, which is where we were posting them. And that transition period, we end up losing 4.
Yeah. I think
just because they were big files, they were like 15 gigabytes. That was so big. So those transitions, and I was so focused on working at Dynamic Recov that podcast file transfer wasn't really my top priority all the time. But I always made sure that I would post every single Friday night.
Now, I do got to give credit to Brendon. Brendon was the broad behind the whole push of this podcast. And
I made sure those podcasts came out every Friday. I was like, you know what? I made a commitment that every Friday 1 episode would come out, and I just stuck to it. And I feel like I have had that same mentality when it comes to my training too.
Yeah.
And that's something that I always tell all my clients, that if you're wanting to achieve something in whatever realm that is, and I talk about this in their careers, in their sports, in their health and fitness journey, whatever it might be that they're going down, that if they prioritize something, they need to make sure that they're setting time aside but actually sticking to it. And I always say, like, people always talk about like be a man of your word. If you say something, then you've got to start doing it. And I feel like that's been an integral thing that I've taken upon myself to actually start implementing a lot more, because I used to be someone that said things but didn't actually follow through all the time.
Yeah.
But now I've decided, you know what, if I really want to be a man of my word, I've actually got to start putting in those actions. Otherwise, I'm just talking shit.
Now, one thing that you will start to listen and hear a little bit more in this podcast is Brendon and I have learnt about each other along this whole process, watching each other, learning about our habits, learning about what we do, what we say. And we've been really focusing on and honing in on what our strengths are. And the one thing that we've both seen is that Brendon is really good at giving people the advice that they need to hear and what pushes them to go to the next step. And I'm really good at comforting the person, helping them understand the headspace that they're in and the situation that they're in, and pushing them towards someone like Brendon. So in this podcast, you'll start to see, especially with the guests as well that we'll have on, and that's another thing that we'll touch on, having a yin and yang attitude towards everything that we've been doing, and hence why the logo is yin and yang, is because we bounce off each other very well, and we have both different outlooks on life. I've been developing a lot more of a thicker skin since being around Brendon, and Brendon's developed a lot more of a softer little baby teddy bear side.
Oh, not gonna lie. The more I hang out with Rianon, I feel like I'm becoming more feminine, or like embracing more of my feminine energy. I'll say that.
I'm just a very emotional guy.
But it's good. I feel like you need a balance of the two. You can't be too like, oh, look at me, bro.
I'm a machine, man. Look at me. I'm a machine.
Because then you become very emotionless. And I feel like I definitely was going down that path.
Yeah.
Especially for a big period of my early 20s.
Yeah.
And then when I started hanging out with Rianon a lot more, he started saying like, oh man, you got to start talking more. You got to start opening up. You got to start talking to your friends.
Brendon's like, go away.
I was like, fuck off. What do I need to talk for? I can just solve the problem.
Yeah.
My whole issue was, if I've got a problem, I just fix it. What's the point of talking about it? Yeah. And then I was always thrown off when people would just talk about an issue. And then I went into solution mode. I feel like I still do that to this day. But the point I'm trying to make is I'd go into solution mode. And sometimes those people just want to talk about it. And that was Ray all the time. He'd be like, bro, I just want to vent to you. And I was like, but just do this and you'll be, the problem's gone.
Let's give them an example. So I came to Brendon and I was like, I'm not training. I'm not training as much as I wish I could. He goes, just go train. There's the answer, which is true. But with certain people, he's learned to understand that, all right, let me dig a bit deeper as to why these people, they need the answer, but they need the fluff underneath
the cuddling.
The cuddling.
Yeah, you need to cuddle them first. And so I can find the deeper reason as to why he's not training right now.
Yeah.
And then once I found the deeper reason as to why he wasn't training right now, then I could solve the issue afterwards.
Yeah. So with,
So I held his hands, gave him a little hug.
Piss off. Piss off.
No, but I feel like no matter what gender you are, it is super important for you to have both sides of the equation.
Big balance.
Like be emotional and be able to express all emotions, but also be able to control your emotions. Because we were reading that Stoic, we always talk about being Stoic and reading those books about Stoicism. I don't know if anyone knows what Stoicism is, but we talk a lot about it in season 1. So if you scroll back through season 1, I do remember episode 14, we actually brought out the Daily Stoic, which is a book that we read.
And we started bringing it into every episode after that.
God. We got a passage today, guys. But anyways, in the Daily Stoic, it talks a lot about becoming or controlling your emotions or having more control of your emotions. And I feel like to me, I've always taken that and been like, oh, I'm so in control of my emotions. But talking to Ree, I realized I wasn't really in control of my emotions. I just was never expressing them.
And that's the thing. You were aware of them and you were aware of how to block them, but you weren't aware of how to combat them. So when it came to a one-on-one punch on, it was just like, all right, I'm trying to read them. I'm trying to read them. Yeah,
but I would never be able to just throw that punch.
Yeah.
Because I never had control of it in that sense. Yeah.
And that's the opposite with me. I knew how to throw the punch, but I didn't. No, wait.
You knew how to throw the punch, but you didn't know how to dodge.
Correct. Correct.
Because you didn't know how to basically stop that emotion from controlling you in that moment.
Yeah.
You would let your emotion just like spurtle out. Yeah. And you were just like, here's my emotions. Yeah. Here, take it all. And then
I just punch and get hit.
Just stop.
Yeah. I just punch and get hit. And I never would. And
your recovery time was like 10 minutes or something.
It was a lot longer. But I think that's a good lesson for everyone to think about is like, being in control of one's emotions is never going to be solved. It's always going to be a learning process. And I think that's
like it's a skill though.
It is.
It's a skill that you develop
over time.
Like it's not like, you're born to be able to control your emotions. It's just a skill that you've developed over time. Because when you're born, your mum doesn't tell you, hey, stop crying. You need to control your emotions. It's just something that you start developing over time that can come from parenthood, like your parents, can come from the people that you hang around.
Experiences.
It comes from a lot of different places. But once you get to a certain age, you need to start creating your own experiences or you create your own environment, which is why we always talk about cues, making sure that you set up your environment properly so then you're ensuring that your future is basically set up from your actions of the past.
Yeah.
So what you do right now is going to display what is going to happen to you in the future, or the behaviors you start adopting. Because I always say this all the time, you become the 5 people you hang around the most with.
That is big.
I have this thought that everyone around us can hear us right now because of how loud it sounds in my ears. But
it's very weird. Like even watching the videos back, it's like we're actually talking normal, but it sounds like we're screaming.
it sounds like it. Because like your whole voice is just like stuck into your head. I want everyone to experience this. You know what? Whoever wants to come on the podcast, just email us, info@evolvpodcast.com.
Little plug. But yeah, going back on that, the 5 people you hang around with, it's definitely a lot more prominent now. I think that was in a book or something. I can't remember where it was.
It wasn't a book that we read, but it's definitely something that
we've heard.
Yeah, we heard it somewhere.
Yeah,
it was either in a book or a quote, or someone else told us that also read it in a book or a quote, or maybe even an Instagram post. Doesn't really matter.
No.
But to me, like, I've heard it from somewhere, but realize that there's so much truth in it.
Yeah.
Because I look at the people I hang around the most with, and I realize that I am becoming more like them, and the people that I start hanging around more with, they start becoming more like me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you become carbon copies of those people, but you start adopting their mannerisms, and everyone knows that. You start adopting their mannerisms, but then also their behaviors and their actions.
It's a very big thing to realize. It's a very big part of your life. When you surround yourself with the people that you think will be a part of your life forever, I don't think people put it into perspective of how strong that statement is. Like the 5 people you do hang around with is, what you'll eventually become.
Exactly.
And I feel like from a very young age, I used to chase the not the fame, but I used to chase the popularity. So I'd always be trying to talk to the coolest people, what I thought were the coolest people, and going to that length of, hey, do you want to hang out? Like, yeah, cool. Whereas Brendon was just like, I'm doing my own thing. You want to join the party? Come on.
Yeah, I feel like I've always been like that.
And you've always been like that. And that's where we balance each other.
There's pros and cons of both of those worlds.
100%.
There's the pros of your world. You're actually choosing who you wanted to be friends with. Even though your mindset was, I want to be with the popular kids.
Yeah.
You still chose to want to be friends with them.
I never had that
Whereas
understanding.
for me, I just decided to
do your own thing.
Do my own thing. Whoever came along for the road came along. And then if I didn't like them, I just cut them. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's also pros and cons with that. That's also not really a majorly positive thing, even though it sounds it.
Yeah.
It sounds it at face value, but I also wouldn't say, because I've lived that life, that it's also not good to just be like that and so aggressive with that type of living all the time.
It's good to understand that there is obviously pros and cons to whatever you do in life. And I think the main thing for you to keep in mind is that, you can't do everything right, but what you do right may be right or wrong. Like, you just have to be really accepting that.
Sometimes you make wrong decisions,
yeah,
but you can always fix those decisions once you realize it's an incorrect decision from your past.
Learning is very, very cool.
Oh, man. And also just touch on that 5 people thing. So to just bring us back.
Go back.
When me and you have started meal prepping, because we're both seeing the same nutritionist. Now, someone that's in my close circle randomly started meal prepping again.
Yeah.
And our best friend, who was the owner of Dynamic Creek Covers All, small little plug, also called us the other day
and said he's meal prepping.
He's been meal prepping.
It's definitely an influential thing.
Doesn't that show you that we started doing it? We didn't tell anyone, hey, start meal prepping, start doing this. We obviously talked about it because that's what we were doing in our life, whatever. And the people that are around us adopted it in their own lives because they wanted to. It wasn't them thinking like, I want to be like Brendon and Rianon. They just decided, oh, that actually is a pretty easy way to live. And now they're doing the same thing as us because they're in our circle.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to correlate this with personal training as well. A lot, or not a lot, but most of my clients that I do speak with about nutrition are now doing nutrition. But the thing is, I haven't told them to do it. They've been like, hey, you did mention it before that you were doing nutrition. Do you mind if I dabble in it? For sure. Here's a free consultation. Go ahead, do it. And these people are actually enjoying the whole process because I haven't talked. The thing is, we don't talk bad about it to make them not understand. What am I trying to say? We talk about it like it's our own life experience. Hey, this is what I'm going through, XYZ. This is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And that is a big influential thing to talk about, because especially when being a personal trainer, your power of influence is very strong, because what you do and what you say and what you preach is what people follow.
100%.
And if you don't back what you do, then you're just talking out of your ass.
If you don't back what you do, then people are not going to listen to you.
Exactly
or
right.
not going to respect what you say in the future. The way people respect you, the way people trust you is if you say something, but you actually follow through with what you were saying. So say you have this goal in mind, whatever it might be, and you actually go ahead and actually achieve that goal, then people are going to respect you a lot more. Like, okay, that guy says things, but he actually goes and does them too.
Yeah. I think another big thing that I've learned since having our nutritionist sort of walk us through is progress photos. I've been looking back at like progress photos and been like, oh, I now understand the client side of things, because being a personal trainer, you're like, I don't need anyone. I'll be sweet on my own. I know how to do nutrition.
No, that's not a personal trainer mindset. That's a younger male mindset.
Exactly, that too. But there's some personal trainers, some people that think that they know it all, and then they get a coach and they're like, oh my God, wow, like this is a whole different perspective.
I feel like it's so important having a coach, having someone that actually guides you, because they have more knowledge than you in one section. Right?
Go on, sorry.
And with nutrition, as you were saying before, a lot of our clients, or a lot of the clients that we see, live their own lives, have their own careers in a specific field, whatever. Let's pick some random. There's a client of mine who's an engineer. His mindset or his daily life is filled with being an engineer, looking at numbers, looking at buildings, looking at plans. And then after he's finished work, the next thing he's thinking about is his family, his kids, his wife. Nothing in that whole day does it show you anything about thinking about training and nutrition and the way to eat and the way to train. Whereas my whole day is helping people improve their health and fitness journeys, look at my own nutrition, go to train, because that's part of my lifestyle. So obviously I'm going to be more mentally geared towards knowing all the stuff about health and fitness. So what I'm trying to say with that is I would go to him if I needed an engineer. He should be coming to me when it comes to health and fitness, because we just specialize in those two areas. So people need people.
And that's exactly what I was going to segue. Recently, Brendon and I went to Melbourne. As you can see, we've upgraded some stuff. We've got some hats, we've got some shirts, we've got some jumpers. I should have worn the jumper, but I didn't.
We made quite a few upgrades recently.
Yeah, like I think we've really just honed in on what's important. We've even got bottles coming out with Zip and Sip. I'll tag them. I'll plug them. There's been a lot that's been going on, but the one thing that Brendon and I did was we went to Melbourne to expand our team. And it was just something that we never thought we'd do. We've done it before, but it backfired on us. So we were very hesitant on going in for round 2.
Yeah.
It was like round 2 of a boxing match. We're like, we don't know what to expect.
Should we be doing this? Are we making a mistake again?
Let's plan it properly.
And we've already hit a few hurdles.
Yeah,
It's only been 2 weeks back.
We have.
We've already hit a few hurdles and we're like, shit, is it turning out to be the same situation again? But we're fighting.
Yeah, I think it's a very big game of tug of war. It's like we're just going back and forth with it. But the first thing we did was we hopped off the plane and we got in an Uber. And we got in this Uber and we were driving, and Brendon loves to talk to the Ubers. He's that guy that always loves to ask the questions. Hey, busy day?
Busy day?
What's been going on, mate?
How's your night going?
How's your night going? How's your day going? So we arrived in the morning, hopped in the Uber, ordered the Uber, and we're on our way to Melbourne CBD. So we hopped off at
Just
Avalon.
To give them context. Yeah, as you just said, we hopped off at Avalon Airport. And if anyone knows Melbourne, that is the silliest place to rock up to if you want to go to the CBD.
Yeah, we kind of we planned it because it was cheap flights, and we're like, oh sweet, Avalon, I would just do an hour and then an hour to Uber and it'd be sweet, but it backfired. So let's just preface that. We hopped in an Uber, we're spending an hour going back to CBD where our place is and where we're meeting these new trainers. And I think the guy, you were talking to him about at the new city, like we were just arriving into the city, and the guy was like, you were having a conversation. I don't remember what it was about, but he
Talking
said
about religion, I'm pretty sure.
yeah. And then or it came up, and he was like, "People need people," and that stuck with me.
No, I said it to him.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he said it. Well, anyway, Brendon was the influential part, and he said, "People need people, mate. It's just the way life is." And that
I talk so much shit sometimes. I think he was talking about his religion.
that's why we started the podcast, is so Brendon could talk more shit. No, I'm joking. But
So he said that he was a Sikh, and I didn't know what that was.
Yep.
It was like it's a religion that's the third most followed religion in India.
Sikh. Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know.
So that's what he
Fun
told
fact
me.
of the day.
Fun fact of the day, Sikhism is a third most followed religion in India. Anyways, he was talking to me a lot about his religion and how he follows it, how he practices it. Then we both started going on a tangent about how religions around the world, or followers and religions, have caused most of the world wars. And the fact that because they follow something, they're so hell-bound on that faith or those teachings that they don't like anyone that doesn't have the same viewpoint as them. And we came to the conclusion that it's because they have closed mindsets and not growth mindsets, and don't understand that other people can have other different beliefs but still be good people.
Yeah.
And we realized most religions have the same basic principles or the same teachings. They're just governed by different people in a way.
And people need people.
Then I came out and I was like, you know what, brother? People need people. Doesn't matter what religion you are. Doesn't matter what color of your skin. People need people. That's
and
it.
it's something that was so subtle, but packed a punch.
Packed a punch, because we came back to Sydney, and me and Ray were the last few weeks have just been like, you know what, Ray? Our business would not run without other people.
Yeah.
People need people.
Yeah. And
people need us.
yeah.
And then we need trainers. And we need nutritionists. And we need clients. And all those people need us as well.
Yeah.
So it's just all these people coming together and realizing, I can provide you this if you can provide me this.
Yeah.
And it's always, what I always go into every situation with is create a win-win situation and you'll create a good relationship.
Yeah. I think we've also, another big thing that we've taken away from the trip has been to get to understand someone, seek to understand before being understood. And that was another big thing that behind the scenes, we butt heads. It's just normal brother thing to do, butt heads. And you come to this is where the talking side of me comes out, and it's best to obviously talk it out.
Sits me down, he's like, Brendon, we need to talk this out, man. I'm like, oh, I'll do this with a coffee.
We butted heads because Brendon was out all day with the trainers and I was home, and yes, I do agree I wasn't doing as much as I could have. But I had previously done all the work.
But there's always these time periods where sometimes when it comes to running a business, or even in families or even relationships, doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. For us, it's brothers. For other people, it could be their partners, could be their mom, could be their dad. Every relationship has some win-win or win-lose or lose-win situation happening on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where you might be losing, the other person might be winning. But a good relationship always makes sure that there always becomes a win-win situation by the end of it.
Yeah.
Because if you give something, you receive something, but you shouldn't be expecting to receive something from that person if you really respect them, if you really like them. So even though one day in business, if we want to talk about this in business terms, I'm doing more work than my business partner, whatever it is, then obviously there's going to be some sort of disagreement, or you're going to be a bit upset, like, oh, come on, I did all this, whatever. But then the next week, it might be the other way around. So you can never be too hell-bound on, fuck you, can't believe this happened, because if it happens in the other way, happens the other way around, you wouldn't be happy if that person did the same thing to you. Yeah. And we always say, and I said this to a few trainers this week actually, when their clients cancel on them last minute, and we have some policy that says if you cancel within 14 hours notice, the trainer is able to charge you for that full session fee, because they could have booked someone in that time. Now, there are times where the trainers have slept in, or I've even slept in or missed a session.
Guilty.
Guilty. Slept in for your sessions or rocked up late, whatever it might be. What expectation would you have of your client to expect you to give them a week free of training, to give them an extra session free on top of the missed one, whatever it might be? If they would expect that from you, then you've got to also do the exact same thing as well.
And that was the one thing that we've been talking about the past couple of weeks as well, is since I've been back from Melbourne, my calendar's been all over the place and it's been shifting heaps, and it stresses me out because there's no consistency. And the one thing that Brendon said to me, and it kind of hit me, and I'm like, you know what, that's true, is I move clients around too much. And when I move clients around, that's their expectation of me. And if they're expecting for me to move or cancel or reschedule because I need extra sleep or I didn't get something done by the end of the day and XYZ and all these examples, they're only going to expect that in moving forward. And if they do it to me, I just have to be okay with it because I've created that habit for them. Whereas now I've been really honing in on getting a set structure and focusing on myself and having the afternoons to myself now and pushing all my afternoon sessions to morning, or giving some of my clients to some of our trainers.
So they can manage it better because you can't.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's definitely a learning, as I said before, learning is fun. You get to learn a lot about yourself as a person in even just watching yourself or recording
100%.
Yourself or
100%. Not going to lie, we're still very new to this space of recording podcasts, talking podcasts. We still don't even know how to use this equipment.
Yeah.
And even as PTs, now I've talked to PTs that have decades of experience, have been PTs for like 15, 20 plus years. There's trainers in our team right now that have been
trainers longer than us.
Yeah, coaching for 9, 10 years plus, right? We've only been coaches for 5 years, the both of us, individually 5 years each, so a decade between the two of us. Now, with that experience, I feel like I've gained a lot in that time frame, but I still realize that there is a lot that I'm going to be learning in the future,
Big time.
in years to come.
Big time.
And in 5 years' time, I'm going to look back at this moment and be like, I was not the best PT back then. But then I'll also know at that time that I'm not the best PT that I can be right now.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. And I've been telling my clients, because there are some clients that I still see myself training when I'm older, I could never stop doing PT.
Yeah.
I love it. I just love it too much.
Yeah.
It's just something that I love doing. And they were kind of asking me, what are your business goals? Is there going to come a time where you stop doing this face-to-face PT? And I've had a hard think about it, and I realized my business one day will not allow me to be doing too much face-to-face PT because there's so much admin stuff and all this extra, travel and all this stuff that we'll be having to do, especially with this podcast now. We're going to have to record multiple times a week. If we start doing that, see you later. But in a nutshell, I still feel like I will be doing some form of coaching because that's where my roots are. That's what I love doing. And I feel like that is, in a way, my purpose. And I've just increased his purpose by running Dynamic Recovery. I can impact a greater portion of people. And I've realized instead of coaching clients, I've started coaching PTs to basically coach more clients in a way.
Now, if there's one thing that you should take away from that, is that if you want to strive towards anything, if you think it's a passion, if you think it's something that's going to be of benefit to you and your life, if you think it's a new venture that you'd like to take down, put aside 20 hours. 20 hours of work, put it aside and just hone in on it. And you'll learn. You'll learn in those 20 hours that whether you like it, whether it's a benefit to your life, whether it's a struggle to your life, then you'll know whether to pull it away or keep it going. We've done the 20 hours. We've worked our ass off to this point to where we've invested in equipment. And we know
that we actually enjoyed it enough to continue doing it. And now we're on season 2. So we did 20... What they don't realize is we did 20 hours of recording like this.
Yep.
You know, we just had the camera recording. there's also probably another 20 hours
Oh, add
involved in
more.
the editing,
Add
involved
more.
in the scripting, involved in the cutting and the moving from my phone to the laptop. That took like an hour in itself for each episode.
So by the
you know?
time you actually put those 20 hours aside, you're already doing 40 hours of work without even realizing it, because now you're putting the 20 aside for something like this and actually doing something, and you're also putting 20
what
aside in the back.
teach them is maybe record 10 episodes of a podcast, and then the editing and all that stuff maybe might accumulate to 20.
Yeah.
Something like that. I didn't actually write down how many hours each episode takes, but I would say recording an episode that goes for an hour, obviously an hour long, but there's also that setup process probably takes maybe
15,
half an hour.
15, 20
If you have
minutes.
stuff like this, half an hour definitely.
Yeah.
Now, half an hour plus the 1 hour podcast, then putting it into a software like CapCut. From there, it's probably going to take another half an hour.
Sometimes
You're looking
days.
at probably 3 hours. Yeah, sometimes days. You're looking at probably 3 hours to get a podcast from talking like this to uploading into a place like Spotify or YouTube.
Yeah, it's a process. And I think the one thing that we were talking about before even coming in here and setting everything up is we were questioning, like, you know, this is big. What we're doing right now, it's a lot of work. We're finding that we can't find time to do other things. But I think the one thing that we need to hold on to is that consistency is key. Consistency should be the number one thing when it comes to goals or running your own business or fitness or health or eating for that matter. And that's the one thing that you have to strive towards is consistency. If you are not consistent, what are you doing? You're just riding the roller coaster with your eyes closed. And where's the fun in that?
100%.
You want to
love this. We love this podcast. We love talking to you guys.
It's
love
fun.
recording these episodes and just explaining our lives.
Yeah.
For some reason, I really want this podcast to, when I sit down and watch myself in 10 years' time, I want to look back and see my journey from becoming a pretty average podcaster to becoming someone that's really confident on the camera, in front of the camera, talking to a microphone like this. But also be able to see my business growth as well, because I really want to talk about dynamic recovery and what's happening in the background in these episodes.
Yeah.
And when we start talking to guests, we're also going to be getting insights from them in different areas, but make sure that it's always related to our themes of business, which we talked about in the intro to this podcast, which you would have seen by now. But our themes are business, self-development, health and fitness coaching, which we've basically already touched on in this whole episode already.
Pretty much. And, you know, they're the main three. I think there was one more. Was there one more? I think there was. Yeah. Like we've touched on all three, and they're pretty much our main three each. And that's what we do every day.
That's our life.
So why not talk about it? And if it tugs the heartstring of one or two people that want to give us a follow, give us a follow. We wouldn't mind it. It's enjoyable for us to just talk here and run a business, and also be able to be open about how we go from beginning to end, or, you know, whether there be an end.
If there is an end, but essentially, like, I want this podcast to be good for someone that's maybe starting their own business or doesn't know how to or doesn't have the confidence to, because we're just two average guys that decided, let's start a business. And you can hear our story. We love talking about our story all the time. I came to Rianon's house, and we'll talk about it. Season 2, episode 1, we're going to discuss why Dynamic Recovery started and essentially why this started afterwards as well.
Yeah.
I came to Ray's house in the middle part of the day. It was around like 12 or 1 o'clock, because that's usually the period
quiet
PTs
period.
are quiet. Yeah, because I do my morning block and then we have our afternoon block. So middle part of the day, I was like, "Hey, Ray, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm gonna go for a sleep on my mat." Like, you remember that spiky mat?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Sweet, coming over."
See you soon.
See you soon. So I rocked up at his house because we live pretty local to each other, and I was just sitting on this mat thing, and I ended up falling asleep for like 20 minutes or something. Then I was like to Ray, "You know what? What if we just started coaching but together?" And that's how Dynamic Recovery was born. And I was like, I think we need to start, like, we have to create a business name if we're going to do this together. And we opened up a partnership, and we're doing all these fancy, cool things. Then we realized wait, this is a lot harder than we thought. We had to call ATO, we had to call ASIC, we had to go on these government websites. We had to come up with business names and logos. The logo that we've got now, I think we got at that time.
This was the second.
It
it was the second iteration of what Dynamic Recov was.
I was basically the same name.
Same name, but the logo itself was different.
What, the little split? That's the only difference.
Yeah, that's true. But
you know what the difference is? The little split that you see on his head.
Just that little divot.
Yeah, in the middle. Divot. Yeah,
that's
but you made it.
Yeah, we did. It was well. Look, I think that's the perfect.
Because what was the reason why I wanted you to join Mobile PT? I think you said you were like sick of your job at the time.
I was sick of my job. I didn't see anything coming from what I was doing, and it was just very stagnant. I was like not enjoying it. But
I was still working for someone at that time. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
and I loved what I was doing. Yeah, I loved working for that company. Yeah, and I also loved like building my little business on the side. Yeah. And I was like, oh, why don't you just do what I'm doing, which was essentially mobile PT, which is what Dynamic Recov is. Yeah. What we primarily focus on is the mobile PT side of things. So I think me and you helped each other get like your first 2 clients. Yeah. And you're still seeing them right now to this day. So just that in a nutshell shows the experience that we have, how much passion we have for this field, because he's still training clients that essentially started Dynamic Recov. Yeah. In a way.
We'll dive into this a lot more deeper in like coming episodes. I feel like we can probably ramble on for another 2 hours, but I think the main...
I love Dynamic Recov.
I think the main preface that you have to take away from this podcast, especially, the 5 people you hang around with is very, very important. Put 20 hours away. Put 20 hours aside for anything that you want to strive towards or achieve, and just focus on consistency. They're the 3 main things that you should take away from this podcast today. Thank you very much for listening. It's been awesome. And look, we've even got buttons like... Look, we can even put an applause on it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast.
We want to thank everyone for listening. If you...
we've already got an outro.
I know. But
that means we don't have to outro them
anymore. Oh, my God. Okay, we don't.
We just end the podcast and that's it.
Guys,
we don't have to say bye.
Yeah, I know.
But how weird is that going to be? I'm so confused.
That's it. We just stop recording now then.
5 people we hang around with. That's it. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Evolv podcast with Brendon and Rianon.
Make sure that you stay tuned for next week's episode. We're going to be dropping 1 every week. So make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And for now, the Evolv podcast. We'll see you soon.
And we're out.
Ciao.